Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Tabor, and today we're going to be going over the database valid entries list. As normal, I'll go ahead and mute the group, and if you have any immediate questions, you can use the chat box in the GoToMeeting. And then what we're going to do today is talk about the database valid entries list. This has been a part of Keystroke for many, many years now, and today we're going to go over a couple of things, some low-end, easy stuff to do, and also some more complex lists. As you know, we're now doing our Keystroke Live on Wednesdays at 10 o'clock. Thank you for attending. We have a good turnout today. Let's talk about the valid entries list. This is a feature inside of Keystroke used in the database manager. Also could be used in any part of the program, but we're going to be demonstrating it in Database Manager. It's used to actually help the data entry. Last week we talked about the default database screens where you can have, when you add a new, let's say, inventory record, have it pre-fill many of the fields for you, so you don't have to repeat those steps. This actually gives you an extra level where you can actually, for every field, give the user or clerk the opportunity to pick from a short list or a long list of things to choose from. As we know, if the data is set up correctly and everyone uses it very similar, you're able to do a lot more with reports and stuff in the long run. Each database field, as you see, can have its own list. Some are already predefined in our Keystroke program, for instance, like the tax table field or a department field would actually be coming from our department database or tax tables. We'll show you how easy it is to create a text-only file. There's some of these already set up in our tutor data. Then I'll also go through how to create or manage a complex list. For instance, we have these available for entering things such as a zip code and have it pre-fill the city, state, and for you. We also have a new database list for city and state and zip. It was just updated recently last month, or actually in December, and it's part of version 715 build 40. Well, let's take a look at Keystroke here, and I'll come back to this screen. Here we are in the Keystroke program. I'm already in Database Manager, and as I mentioned, the database valid entries list can be used in different areas of the program. Let me just start with going back a step. I'm going to go back to the inventory database, and let's take a look here as the difference between a Keystroke list and a database valid entries list. If I'm in the department field, for instance, and I hit the insert or F2 key, it brings up a list of our Keystroke departments. This is not a valid entries list, although this will tell you if it's valid or not valid, but this is actually a database list. The same would apply, for instance, let's say the tax codes. When I hit insert here, this is a list that's set up that shows your different tax tables and so forth. Actually tax codes for inventory. This is not a database list. We can actually, I'm going to bounce over to the customer database. This is in our tutor data and show you an example. In the salutation field, when I hit the insert or F2 key, it brings up a short list that we've actually created for our sample data. The salutation can be Mr., Mrs., Miss, Ms., and Dr. And so I can just come through this and pick from the list and have it populate very quickly for me. Credit limit. Maybe you set your credit limits. You don't want people to put in $308 or $10,000. you can actually create a list, and this one actually goes all the way up to $100,000. But this list here can be managed, and you can add and subtract things from this list. For instance, I'm on this list that's already been created, but we'll go back and I'm going to show you how we can make a list. Let's say in the customer database, I want to use a simple list for the class. This is a new field in version 7. If I hit insert, it's going to say a valid entries list cannot be found. Would you like to create one? When I select yes, it's going to actually tell me the file name that it's creating. And right now it's in the background, you can't see this, but there's actually the database list editor up in the front. And I answered, yes, I'd like it to be plain text. I have to switch screens so you can see what popped up here. So this is what's popped up. It's asking me, would I like to make this a plain text file? I'll answer yes. And I'm just trying to make sure I have the active windows being shown here. This is actually going to be where I start typing in a list. And in the class field, maybe I can start using things like preferred would be one. These are different types of customers. I'm going to create a class, and maybe they're like our Keystroke dealers. We have a preferred, premier, call it standard, and I'm putting these in any order, authorized, and so forth. And now I just have to go down and hit save, and it's going to save the file for me. And you'll see at the bottom here, and tell me if you can see editing C keystroke tutor lists, list C for customer 016. It's the 16th field. When I click on save, now it's got a little pop-up here to go back to keystroke. And so now I'm in the class field still. Now when I hit insert, I have that list I just created. This is a simple list. It's a text-only list. It just has one column, and that's all it's going to do. And so now as I can go through and I can just set up my customers, I just saved that customer number 1, I hit insert, and I can just pick it from a list. And that's as simple as it gets there. Now I mentioned that the file created was what its name was, and I'll go ahead and I'm going to bounce around here. You may not see what I'm doing at this time. I'm going to my Keystroke Tutor lists directory. I'll share this screen for you. So these are the lists that were created in our sample or tutor data. If I change this to date modified, you'll see I just created the file list C016.dat. If I were to open this like in Notepad, and I have my my Windows set up to use Notepad to open up DAT files and made it easier for this example. I double-clicked on it and Notepad opens up. And now in Notepad you can see the list. And if you say, you know, I really like to make this alphabetical, I can go ahead and change some things there, and I can add some new stuff here. And maybe I'll just put an N/A here, if that's going to be something you might want to ever try. I'm going to save this file. The reason why I bring this up is that you know that you can use something else to create the list. If you had 100 choices, you wouldn't have to type them in. You could go into Excel or wherever that list exists and just do a copy and paste and bring it on in. And you'll see how I do that with the zip code list. Anyhow, I'm saving this file. I'll go back into Keystroke. Now when I hit insert to bring up the list, you can see I've changed the order of the list. I've added this NA at the bottom and something like that. So that's a simple list right there. That's a plain text list. Now I'll show you some features in Keystroke that really have been around for over 10 years now. If I want to speed up the entry of a customer, and let's say, let's first of all pick a customer, choose for less. Let's say this customer here has moved and they're no longer in this zip code. They moved to Beverly Hills, 90210, and I hit enter. It'll automatically go out to a list that I've created and find Beverly Hills, California 90210. If I hit insert in this field here, this is the list of zip codes. And as you can see, it starts at the very beginning in Puerto Rico and goes down to, I guess, what's the last ones here? Probably 9999. There's some there in Alaska. Let me show you how easy this is to have this be created. I'm going to go ahead and do some stuff in the background here. On a new data set, back to Keystroke, on a new data set, if you're in the zip code field and you were to, if you found out that this was not working or you wanted to create the new list, I would hit insert. It's going to say that the list does not exist. In the last 30 seconds, I went out and deleted the list. It asked me, would I like to create one? And I say yes. And you may not be able to see this, but I'm going to try to show it. It came up with this file not found. It says, would you like to initialize the default keystroke list file? We do this for the zip code field and the city field because that's the new list. So I'm going to answer yes to this. And it's asking me if I'd like to view the list. I can say yes, and then the database list editor will bring up that long list of about 42,000 lines, or I could say no, and then it just brings me right back to Keystroke. Let me make sure I'm sharing Keystroke with the list right in front of me. And here this is called a linked list. This is a list that allows us to link a zip code to a city and a state. And now if I type in 90210, you'll see there's different Beverly Hills zip codes. I'm just using that. And now the list is created. If I go over to the list of cities and I hit insert, I'm going to go through the same things that the list is not created. I answer yes. You won't see it. I'm going to use the default. I answer yes. Would I like to view the list? This time I'll say yes for this demonstration purpose. And now in the background it's kind of cranking through the 42,000 records on the lower left. You'll see it's saying adding record down here. So you don't actually have to view the list. It's really a simple process that Keystroke does. It just takes the file and copies it into your database folder. We manage all of these files in the, let's say, data lists folder. And as it's cruising along there, I'm going to show you some other stuff here. It should be done pretty quick here. We actually purchased this list of city and zip codes online from a company that does this, and they provide different levels of information. We really wanted a simple standard list that we purchased. On this Excel spreadsheet, you'll see kind of the order of how we receive the list. It has the zip code, it has the city, and it has the state. This is some population information. I think it's, I don't know if it's gross income or something like that. But that's like the smallest list we could buy. And basically I took this information kind of from this area here and converted it into the format needed. And I'll show you that format. And basically the format that we wanted to get out of this looks like this. This is the part I ended up cutting and pasting into the file. You'll see up here if you type in a zip code like 16820, but you might type it in as 16820-12345, you know, the zip code plus 4. Well, we wanted to find that zip code and tell us that it's Aaronsburg, PA, and it'll put the zip code in and stuff for you. So I'm going to bounce back to our database list editor. Whoop. So we were waiting there for a period of time, and it pulled up this list here. This list is actually the value. If you typed in or selected the city, it would put in the city, state, and zip for you. This is the city file, a little reverse of the zip code file that has the value you want. And this other fields tells the program how many fields you want to include. I could come in here and actually start putting in tax tables. I might have a different tax table for these different zip codes. And I could set this up and actually do an Excel spreadsheet if I wanted to, or just manually come in here and let's say put O for out of state on all of these fields, and I could copy and paste this downward. And then I would go to my, let's say, my state of Colorado, and when I found it, I would put in a different value. And then if I were to pick this value, it would pre-default the tax district. So you could actually use this list, a linked list, to fill out, by the entry of one field, fill out, let's say, 5 or 10 or 15 different fields in the database for you. So I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to close this file. I'm just going to cancel it. I don't want to change anything. Close a few of my windows here. Back to Keystroke. Make sure you can see it. So this is a linked list here. If I want to put in, let's say, our zip code here, 80435, it's going to find Dillon, Colorado automatically for me. A very powerful tool. It's been in Keystroke, like I said, for over a decade or so. It's easy to use. It's kind of intuitive. You don't need to really open the database list editor, which is a program called ddlists.exe. You can actually manage everything within Keystroke by just hitting the insert once. If a list is there, great. If it's not, let's say grace period. These are in our sample data. These are actual values we've set up. If you didn't like these values, you could just hit insert again and then go in and play with it. And you can delete everything out of there that you don't want to see in there. So here's the customer grace period, a very simple file. That's about it for the database lists editor. I think I'm going to open this up for some discussion right now. And you might have some more questions or things I didn't answer. Let's go ahead and unmute everybody at this time, and let me see if anyone has any questions for me. If you think I went through this in a kind of a quick pace, but I hope you got the gist of it. If you try something and it's not working, give us a call. But again, this scenario is actually pretty easy to deal with. And if there are no questions, we'll just move on and tell you that next week we're going to be doing some more database stuff. This will be the database screens editor, and like you might want to rearrange your fields or have a simplified screen, and Dave Hunsinger will be going over those next week. Okay, if there's no questions, I'm going to say goodbye and thank you all for attending.